My name is Rachel. I married my husband John 3 years ago, and we've been living happily ever since. Both of us work hard, so we live comfortably, spending our days off on trips and having fun together. And now, there's a new life growing inside me. My belly isn't noticeable yet, but the baby is almost at 13 weeks. I was hoping to announce the news to everyone once I got to my second trimester. My life was complete with my beloved husband and our cute baby on the way. We're not particularly wealthy, but we manage a decent living, and I would say people may consider us to be couple goals. But there's one thing that bothers me. It's my husband's sister, my sister-in-law. I just can't get along with her. My in-laws are really nice people and have treated me like a real daughter since we first met. But my sister-in-law didn't like that and started making snide remarks about me. Even at our wedding, she complained about the food and embarrassed the staff and kept asking me, "How much did you spend on this? It's John's money, isn't it? You could have at least kept it a couple of notches down." Saying that, she only made sarcastic remarks to me. She clearly doesn't like me and behaves like that every time we meet. Because I don't meet my sister-in-law that often, and it's just a matter of putting up with her once in a while, I kept telling myself that it's okay. However, she started to stay at our house very often. She got married before us and has a daughter who just turned 4. She and her husband always liked to travel, and now that their daughter is a bit older, they've started to travel a lot in the past 2 years, and they always stay at our house the night before their trips. It's true that our apartment is just 20 minutes by car from the airport. Even though they could just head straight to the airport instead of coming to our place, they always spend the night at our house before departing for their trip the next day. At first, I didn't mind, but it's starting to become a regular occurrence, and I really don't like it. My sister-in-law's family always shows up unannounced, ringing up our intercom. "Hey Rachel, we're here!" It happened again while I was having dinner with my husband. In a hurry, I asked John, "Did you know they were coming today?" He shook his head in response. "Hey Rachel, open up!" That loud yell from the other side of the front door left me with no choice but to open it. "Oh, we haven't had dinner yet. Can you fix something?" With that, she sat down at the seat where I had been sitting just a moment ago. Beside her, my sister-in-law's husband and their daughter took their seats. There's no, "Excuse us for intruding," no, "Sorry for the sudden visit," not even, "Can we have something to eat?" Nothing at all. They just come over as if it's their own place, hang around, and treat me like their housekeeper. I really hated that. Despite my feelings, I cooked and entertained my sister-in-law's family, only to be told, "Rachel, isn't the food a bit bland today? Could you pass me the salt?" And with that, she made another request without even trying to get it herself. I've asked John a few times to help me out, but he just says, "I'm tired from work," and just drinks beer with my sister-in-law's husband. Normally, I have no complaints about my husband, but I hate it when he does this. My sister-in-law's family eats dinner with us, drinks, and makes a huge mess without even offering to clean up. One day, unable to bear it anymore, I said to John, "Can you ask your sister to refrain from coming so abruptly? It's difficult for me to prepare food in a rush and clean up after their mess." But John just said, "But it's not like they're here every day. They only come over sometimes, before a trip, right? Don't be so mean." And so he dismissed me. Even after that, I pleaded him several times, but he never listened. During those days of feeling helpless, I found out I was pregnant. John was very happy about my pregnancy and even accompanied me to the hospital. He helped carry the groceries. We read parenting books together. But still, he never says anything to his sister and her family. Just the other day, knowing very well that I've been unable to carry on with my regular day due to morning sickness, "My sister and her family are coming over today," he casually told me. Wait, what? I can barely function right now. I can't cook a full meal. And honestly, it's much better for me to just lie down. When I said that, he responded with a smile. You don't have to force yourself. We have beer. Just prepare some snacks. My husband, grinning as he said this. I can't just lay down while his sister and her family are here. Why can't he understand that? Even if it's just snacks, we don't usually keep ready-to-eat meals at home, so I have no choice but to prepare something, however simple it may be. He should be able to figure that out if he gave it some thought. After that, I tried several times to negotiate with my husband to decline their visit, but all he said was, "My sister's already on their way here. It's too late now." He would just say that. I had no choice but to prepare some snacks while not feeling well and went to bed early. But in the end, I was woken up by my sister-in-law's loud voices and couldn't sleep at all. And I have to go to work tomorrow. I thought about this, but in this situation, I couldn't even tell my husband to be quiet, so I endured it somehow. The next day, it seemed like my sister-in-law's family was leaving early for their trip, so they started preparing around 4 a.m. Their loud voices and bustling activity woke me up involuntarily. Then they came into my room uninvited and said, "Sorry, Rachel, could you give us a ride to the station?" They even went so far as to ask that. But I'm still in my pajamas, and I haven't even put on my makeup. I have work today. You can prepare when you come back. We came by train and we'll be late if we wait for the bus. Please, hurry up. Being talked to like that, I got really mad. I went to wake up my husband and said, "John, can you please drive your sister?" But all he did was moan and refuse to get up. No matter how much I shook him or called his name, he stubbornly refused to wake up. Seeing this, my sister-in-law, unable to bear it, said, "Rachel, hurry up! We're going to miss our flight!" And she started yelling at me. I had no choice but to drive my sister-in-law to the airport, and when I got home, my husband had already left for work. There were dishes from what seemed to be his own breakfast left in the sink, and I thought he didn't prepare anything for me, and I felt sad. 2 months later, when my belly started having a noticeable bump, I had some leftover paid time off, so I decided to cut work off in the morning and go home. That's when I noticed a voicemail message on our home phone. When I played it back, it was a message from my sister-in-law saying, "Hey Rachel, it's me. I'll be coming over again this evening. Thanks." Hearing that, I thought, if I stay, I'll just be used as a maid again, and I hurriedly packed my things. I decided to tell my husband that I had something to do and was going back to my parents' house. With that thought, I was about to leave with just the bare essentials when an idea came to me. I left the bags I had prepared at the entrance and checked the contents of the pantry. Just yesterday, I used up all the groceries, so there's almost nothing left in the fridge. There was only one frozen pasta left in the freezer, but I gathered all the instant ramen and a few ready-to-eat meals I had kept for emergencies, took them all, and went back to my parents' house. A few hours after arriving at my parents' house, I got a call from my husband. "Rachel, my sisters are coming today, you know. Where are you? They said they left a voice message." "A voice message? I don't think there was any. Plus, I got called back to my parents' house because I have things to do. I'm staying overnight and I'll be back tomorrow." Upon hearing this, my husband's mood turned sour. "So, what am I supposed to do about dinner? My sisters are coming and there's nothing in the fridge." He started to panic, but it was none of my business. "Why don't you discuss it with your sisters?" "Oh, my dad's calling me. Gotta go." "Hey, wait, Rachel!" Ignoring my husband, I hung up the phone and set it to silent mode. Actually, there was no truth to being called back home. But if I had stayed at our house, I would have had to put up with the same unpleasant experiences, as always. I couldn't bear to stay at home thinking that, so I had to leave. That day, I ate the meal my mother had cooked for the first time in a long time, got a good night's sleep, and the next day I went shopping with my parents for children's clothes. When I remembered to check my phone, there were multiple calls and messages from my husband. Among them were messages blaming me for the hard time he had. I was incredibly upset and angry. Then I sent an email to my husband. "I'll be bringing my parents back with me tonight. I think we'll get there in the evening. Could you please clean up the room? Oh, and Dad said he wants to have a drink with you, so please prepare some snacks." Then I put my phone away and enjoyed the precious time with my parents. Around 7 p.m., I arrived home with my parents. My husband looked noticeably thinner, even though I hadn't seen him in just one day. The house was not completely cleaned up, and there was garbage scattered in places. "Good to see you, Mom and Dad. I'm sorry, my sisters came yesterday, and the room is a mess," he said apologetically to my parents. "Don't worry, you didn't expect us to come." My parents calmed him down, saying this. I made some quick snacks with my mom and served them to my husband and Dad. "So, your sisters came yesterday. Must have been tough, huh?" my dad asked my husband. Then John opened his mouth and began talking about how hard he had had it. When my sister-in-laws realized there was nothing at home, they got in a bad mood and said, "Order us something already." Apparently, they had John order whatever they wanted, like pizza and sushi. On top of that, they made John go to the convenience store alone to buy drinks, alcohol, and snacks. When the delivery arrived, they demanded money from John. He told me he spent about $180 just yesterday. My sister-in-law's kids are still small, so it can't be helped, but she always makes a mess after eating. However, neither my sister-in-law nor her husband say anything. I had pointed it out before, but they said, "Can you not interfere with our stuff?" Ever since then, I haven't said a word. John had never done any preparation or cleaning whenever the sister-in-laws came over, which is why experiencing this firsthand, what I always do, finally made him realize how hard it was. He told my dad, "I even had to take care of my sister's kid and give her a bath. I also had to prepare their beds. I was really exhausted." When John was talking to my dad like that, he seemed really small. My dad just listened to John's story silently. When John finished talking, he asked, "It sounds tough. I heard from Rachel as well that your sisters visit quite often. Is that right?" In which John replied, "On the other hand, yes, that's right. I've always left it all to Rachel, so I didn't realize how hard it was. I've decided to firmly refuse them from now on." And then he turned to me and said, "Rachel, I am really sorry. I didn't realize it was this hard. I'll definitely say no to my sisters." My dad just smiled warmly, looking at me, and I subtly gestured to my dad, trying not to let John notice. Yes, this was all part of the plan. I had talked to my parents about my sister-in-laws when I went back home. My dad suggested that I should go and put John in the same position. As a result, John understood how hard I've been having it and had him promise to firmly say no to his sister's visit. Everything was going as I had planned, so I secretly pumped my fist in joy. The next day, John contacted my sister-in-law and said, "Sis, I'm sorry, but please stop coming over to our place. It's too much for us to have you over, and we've had a hard time." He said that and refused to have her family over in the future. My sister-in-law and her husband were angry and kept coming over, but John never opened the door. Furthermore, John said, "I'm sure my sisters won't give up and will keep coming." He suggested moving. With our baby on the way, we decided to move to a larger apartment. Of course, we're keeping this a secret from my sister-in-law and her husband. We spoke to John's parents about the situation and asked them not to disclose our new address to my sister-in-law's family. Since then, they have stopped coming over. In fact, our interaction with my sister-in-law's family has significantly decreased. We're relieved that we no longer have to deal with them. A few months later, we were blessed with a daughter, and now we're living happily. During major holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving, we do visit John's parents, which means we meet my sister-in-law's family, but we never reveal our address, no matter how much they ask. They've thrown fits and demanded our address multiple times, but John's parents scolded my sister-in-law for this behavior, so she stopped asking. I guess this is the right distance to keep. We've settled into this arrangement and have moved on with our lives. John has become more proactive in doing household chores and childcare ever since that incident. Even though he's working, he is supportive and involved in our daughter's upbringing. That incident must have had a real impact on him. In a way, I feel a bit grateful to sister-in-law's family for sparking this change in John, but I'm keeping that thought to myself. For now, I plan to have John help out a lot more with housework and childcare.
Infertility treatment? What a waste of money. If we're infertile, the cause must be you. My husband hurled those harsh words at me, and in the end dropped a massive bombshell. I'm going to divorce my infertile wife and marry your sister instead, haha. Indeed, my husband chose his sister-in-law over his infertile wife. My name is Linda. I live with my husband, Nathan. Days spent with my beloved husband were indeed happy days. However, we had a hard time trying to have a baby. The discussion about infertility treatment began about 2 years into our marriage. Hey Nathan, I think it's time we started thinking about having a baby. Nathan responded with a lack of enthusiasm. Infertility treatment comes with various burdens, right? Both physically and financially. That's true, but if it's going to help us conceive, I think it's okay to give it a try. Well, maybe, but... Nathan didn't deny the idea of infertility treatment, but he was also not eager to proactively engage in it. I had become a housewife when Nathan had transferred for his job, so I guess he has financial concerns. Don't worry about the money. It's been 6 months since we moved, and I'm getting used to this place. I'm thinking about finding a job soon, so we don't have to worry so much about finance, right? If I can start earning an income, we'll have more financial flexibility than we do now. With that, he would probably become more open-minded and supportive towards the treatment, but he reacted differently than I expected. Well, it'd be great if you could start working. But? I don't know how I feel about you finding a job for the sake of getting treatment. It's like putting the cart before the horse. Don't most people conceive naturally? That's not necessarily true. Women's bodies aren't that simple. I hear that when couples can't have kids, the cause is usually the female. Slightly irritated by Nathan's words, I responded, I do hear that often, but there are cases where the male may be the cause, you know. Alcohol, obesity, even diseases from childhood can cause male infertility. He frowned disapprovingly. Maybe, but statistically speaking, it's more likely to be the female, right? I mean, I haven't had any major illnesses, and I only drink socially. I doubt the issue is with me. So you're saying you think it's my fault? I didn't say that. I'm just generally speaking. Even though he didn't say it outright, it was clear that he believed I was the reason for our infertility. But it was true that I couldn't rule out the possibility that there might be factors on my side, so I went to get an infertility test at the hospital. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law was standing outside our door waiting for me when I returned home. Linda, where have you been? You're a housewife and yet you're always out. Hurry up and let me in, it's terribly hot outside. My mother-in-law always visits without notice, keeping tabs on me. Regardless of how well I kept up with the household chores, she consistently found something to criticize, pointing out things like, this spot is dirty, and this isn't good enough. Reluctantly, I let her in, and the first thing she said was, So, I hear you've decided to start infertility treatment? Huh? Why do you know about that? I obviously heard it from my son. Is that so? I was planning to wait and assess the situation before bringing up the topic with my husband again, so the fact that he had already talked about it with his mother was a surprise. You see, we let you marry our son for the sake of our family's heir. Yet, 2 years after marriage, you still haven't managed to get pregnant. I don't even know why we approved this marriage in the first place. I apologize for not having been able to bless you with a grandchild yet, but Nathan and I are committed to making every effort to conceive in the near future. Upon hearing my non-confrontational response, my mother-in-law let out a deep sigh. Linda, dear, if trying hard was all it took to get pregnant, no one would have any trouble, right? After all, it's clear that you're the cause of this infertility, so maybe you should consider a divorce or something. What? Divorce? It makes sense, doesn't it? There's no way my son is the cause. Like mother, like son. Not only my husband, but also my mother-in-law doubted that I was the cause. Apparently satisfied with her outburst, my mother-in-law left for the day. Upon my husband's return from work, I relayed the comments made by his mother. See, even Mom says the problem isn't me. If we're infertile, it must be you, Linda. He responded with a smug look while nodding in agreement. There was no point in fighting back. He wouldn't consider the possibility that he might be at fault, not even for a second. I decided to wait for my infertility test results. I visited the hospital again a few days later, where the doctor told me a surprising fact. So, we didn't find any issues with you. Is that so? But then why? The doctor began awkwardly. Please have a talk with your husband. If you really want a baby, it would be best for him to also get tested. Have my husband get tested? We can't definitively say the cause lies with just one of you. However, pregnancy is something that requires cooperation from both spouses. Just to be sure, I recommend that your husband also get tested. Is that so? I wasn't the cause. While I was relieved at the doctor's words, I wondered how to break the news to my husband. If I tried to be roundabout, it would only make things more complicated. I've got the test results. Let's talk about it tonight. I texted him and decided to wait for him to come home. As I was preparing dinner, my husband returned. Behind my husband, inexplicably, stood my mother-in-law as well. Mother-in-law? Why? I invited her. When I told her that the test results were out, she said she wanted to come. My husband had a look of ease on his face. They appear completely oblivious to the possibility that he might be the cause. Linda, hurry up and tell us the results. Although I can already guess without asking, haha. To my smirking mother-in-law, I responded clearly. There were no issues with me. The doctor suggested Nathan also get tested. Huh? Why me? Faced with the unexpected turn of events, my husband was obviously dissatisfied. What do you mean why? Pregnancy is something a couple has to work on together, isn't it? I had no issues, so now it's your turn to get checked. What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying the problem is with me? That's not what I'm saying. If we both get tested and neither of us is the issue, that's reassuring. If by any chance you are the issue, then we just have to get the proper treatment. As I tried to appease my angry husband, my mother-in-law interrupted. Stop this nonsense. Nathan has always been healthy. There have never been any issues with him. It's impossible for him to be the cause. It seemed as though she hadn't been listening to a word I said, as she stubbornly insisted that her son was not the issue. To convince them both, I showed them the medical report I received from the doctor. Look, I got this today. It clearly shows that they didn't find anything. Yet, both Nathan and my mother-in-law casually glanced over the report, showing little interest in actually reading it thoroughly. Clearly, they were reluctant to accept the reality. Nathan finally blurted out an outrageous statement. Women are the ones who get pregnant, so the problem must be with you. Wait a second, I just showed you the test results. His mother once again interjected, shrugging her shoulders in disbelief. This must be a fake report anyway, right? Going to such extremes just to avoid a divorce. You're truly a frightening woman. What? Why would I do such a thing? Stop saying ridiculous things. Ignoring my protest, the two continued their conversation. Hey Nathan, wouldn't a younger woman be better? Maybe. This could be good timing. Oh yeah, with her? Strike while the iron is hot, as they say. With her? What were these people talking about? A few minutes later, an unbelievable fact slipped out of Nathan's mouth. Well, actually, I've impregnated your sister. What? We recently found out she's pregnant. If I were infertile, she wouldn't be pregnant, right? My sister's pregnant? I was so stunned that I couldn't think straight. Nathan continued without paying attention to my state. So, here's the thing. I'm thinking of marrying your sister. Mom has been saying she wants a grandchild soon after all. My mind went blank and I felt like collapsing right then and there. An affair with my sister? And she's pregnant and they're going to get married? Wait, Sarah's still in college. And she has a boyfriend. Yeah, but apparently she fell for me. When did this? We've been seeing each other for a while now. Nathan reveals the cruel truth nonchalantly. He was having an affair with my sister while we were discussing our infertility issues? Abandoned by my husband and betrayed even by my own sister. I had no idea any of this was happening while we were discussing our infertility. My mother-in-law further compounded my already speechless state with her insults. Do you understand now? My son is perfectly capable of getting a woman pregnant, so you're the issue. We don't need a wife who can't bear children. That's true. Nathan agreed with his mother. It's settled then. We're getting a divorce. I already have the papers. Fill them out quickly. He seemed thrilled as he thrusted the divorce papers at me. Are these people sane? Impregnating your wife's sister and planning to remarry? That's outrageous. That's when I felt it. The surge of anger that I can't even put into words. Fine, we'll get a divorce, but you're going to pay me alimony. Once we'd agreed, he immediately kicked me out of our home. See you around, you barren lady. I'll find happiness with your adorable sister. Later, I returned to my parents' home and explained the situation to them. They were enraged, but the truth is, they disowned my sister a long time ago. I was the only family member that my sister still had contact with. Her reckless behavior, particularly concerning money and relationships, had caused our parents a great deal of trouble. She was disowned by her parents once she started college. Nevertheless, she is my one and only sister. I'd regularly invited her to our home for meals with my husband. And this is how things end up. My parents said they summoned Sarah and my husband to give them a scolding. But I told them that was unnecessary. I knew that even if they got together, it wouldn't work out. And several years later, it was a few years later when I got remarried to Gary, someone I met at my new job, and we were soon blessed with a daughter. One day when we were out as a family, I heard a voice say, Hey Linda, is that you? Nathan. Long time no see. The voice belonged to my ex-husband. He took a quick glance at my daughter and current husband, then spoke to me with bitterness. Ah, so you were married. Lucky you, someone took you in. Mind your own business. How's your marriage with my sister going? At this, my ex-husband made a sour face. Just as I thought. I pretended to know nothing and asked him, What's with the face? You should be happy you ended up with a child with my sister instead of me. Well, you see, he replied with a pale face. Sarah was really unfaithful. Even after she gave birth, she used my money to cheat on me. Now we're divorced. She even took our child with her after all the baby stuff she made me buy. Oh dear, that sounds like quite a disaster for you, I replied, though I knew all along. I was aware of my sister's promiscuous behavior, which resulted in numerous troubles. Every time she ended up demanding money from our parents. Looking around and seeing that my daughter and husband weren't around, my ex-husband suddenly turned to me. Hey, would you consider giving us another chance? Excuse me? Don't you think it's a little too late for that? As you can see, I'm remarried. But your daughter's a stepchild, right? You shouldn't have to go through the trouble of caring for someone else's child. I don't need children anymore. Let's live freely together. He must have thought that my daughter was my stepdaughter. This man, after all this time, still didn't suspect my fertility. I boldly told this mistaken man the truth. What are you talking about? That girl's my biological daughter. Huh? His expression at that moment is something I can never forget, even to this day. He had a dumbfounded look, about 5 times more than usual. Weren't you infertile? Trembling, he asked. I explained politely. Well, isn't it unfortunate? We conceived our daughter right after I married my husband. But more importantly, I wonder who the actual father of Sarah's child is. I looked at my ex-husband with a wicked smile. His face was pale. Hey, what do you mean by that? Oh, don't worry about it. Just curious, you know? I knew my sister was promiscuous. I also knew the cause of our infertility was you. In other words, you were used by my sister. Used? Yes, she probably didn't care who she was marrying as long as she had a man to raise her child. And you, who misunderstood, fell into my sister's scheme and married her, unknowingly raising another man's child. So, you mean I was deceived into being a surrogate father? He fell to the ground and clung to me, crying inconsolably. Please, you're the only one for me. I was abandoned by Sarah, my child, even my own mother. I'll end up all alone. I don't care. That's the result of your actions, right? It's quite pathetic to be acting this way for someone your age. I looked down and threw those words at him. He slumped his shoulders, completely disheartened. Ever since, despite our conversation, he has kept sending me desperate texts. I was wrong. I want to start over. You're the only one for me. Please come back. I won't cheat anymore. But I blocked all of them without replying. It seems my ex-husband later requested a DNA test for the child. As a result, it was confirmed that the child was not his. To this day, he's in a state of self-isolation at home, not even going to work. Being abandoned by his mother, his only ally, feels like he's getting what he deserves. I, of course, haven't seen my ex-husband since that day. I have a family that is incomparably more precious. I couldn't care less about that man. I want to continue to prioritize my husband, who chose me, and our daughter, who came into our lives, focusing on them as we cherish